There we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this little forum for Polaris School and Center. I'm Julie Legal-Brodeur. I'm one of the founders of Polaris School and Center, and we have two wonderful parents with us today to answer questions about their experience at the school. Safa and Leah, I'll let you introduce yourselves.
Sure. My name is Leah Kogan, and I have two little boys at the school, Ezra, who's in the grade 1-2 class, and Milo, who's in the kindergarten class.
And my name is Safa, and I have my daughter Nabawa, who was in kindergarten last year and will be in kindergarten again this coming year.
So tell me, each of you, why did you choose Polaris? How was it how you expected it to be, and how was it different from what you expected it to be?
Yeah, for me, while I was thinking about kindergarten for Nabawa, I was really looking for spaces that not only emphasize or appreciate play, but also raise the status of play as the most important thing children should be doing. So there's a difference between saying we do play-based instruction and saying we let children play. There's a very big difference between these two things. And so it was very clear to me in my first encounter with Miss Yasmin and coming into the kindergarten classroom that play is the most important thing. And I appreciate the preservation of that in our times, especially when a lot of different schools and kindergartens claim that they use play, but it's not a use. It's a state of being, and it's a right, and it's a need, and it deserves this level of preservation. So that's why I chose Polaris, because it's very true to that. Of course, within structure and holding of children.
And just to add, how was the school what you expected, and how was it different than you expected?
I would say that it definitely met my expectations in terms of play and more. And I think what I appreciated was also that there didn't need to be a stated outcome in any of our conversations or discourse with the teacher or with the parents, that it's not see what play leads to, but that you could just witness their holistic all-around growth and understand that that is because they're being allowed to play for extended periods of time.
And was there something about the school that was different than you had expected?
Unfortunately, the interruptions of COVID and the shutdowns have made it difficult to have longevity in order to reach, I think, these perhaps points of inquiry on my part, like, oh, I'm noticing something I have a question about. But overall, I believe that it met my expectations and more in that regard.
And Leah?
Yes, so we came to Polaris a little differently. We were about 1.5 years into our eldest's experience of academic life, and we were noticing that there was already so much emphasis on his academic performance in particular key areas, and knowing the degree to which our son is sensitive to energy and sensitive to how people are perceiving him and engaging with him, we started noticing some stress in that sense of that he felt he needed to perform a certain way and was unable to meet a standard. And so we were looking for an environment where we could release him from that, free him from this idea that his learning journey is all about these academic abilities. And so we found Polaris, and we, through the literature, felt like this was a really important avenue of exploration for us. We met with the administrator, we met with the teacher, Miss Yasmin, and understood right away that this was an environment that was going to approach our son's learning not just from his academic growth, but his spiritual, creative, physical growth, and encourage him into his body, encourage the interactive, play-based learning that he so desperately needed as a little boy who is naturally, I think, temperamentally in his head. And encourage him into his body, play games, skip, climb, and be present, be fully present with what he's doing without interruption or need for framing or explaining his experience and what he's doing. And we've been so pleased to see how that has released some of that stress that he was feeling initially at school, and helped him develop in ways that we really value. His ability to do things physically, his ability to engage socially, and have healthy dynamics with other kids, and to not feel the stress of needing to perform in particular ways.
Well, you've both started a bit answering the next question, which is what is the biggest impact that you see the school has had on your child or your children?
Yeah, where do we start?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, as I mentioned, we have 2 little boys at the school now, and both of them engage with the world in such unique ways. So I'll speak to each of them a little bit. With Ezra, as I mentioned, the impact that we've seen is his willingness to trust himself physically. So being encouraged by his teachers who are so attentive to his unique journey, and noticing right away that what he needed was to climb and swing and skip, and through the encouragement of his peers and helping him develop those skills, we've just noticed how that physical exploration has translated into even more intellectual curiosity, which we didn't think was possible, but it is. That the learning in his body has encouraged him towards a more expansive engagement with learning holistically. And then with Milo, who is so creative and just totally immerses himself in his creative world, his imagination. We've noticed that, so coming into the school, he experiences some hearing loss. So his language development was well on track, but I think we had some minor concerns about his ability to communicate verbally, knowing full well that he communicates in so many other ways. But that by entering this space and being allowed by his lovingly attentive teacher to fully immerse himself in his drawing, in his building, in observing flowers and birds, and in singing very loudly. And by not being interrupted in that play, by a teacher who understands that his presence with his learning is what's teaching him, that his language has actually substantially improved. And not that we had a standard set for him, but that just he naturally, by being able to learn the way he learns, has developed the skills he needs to communicate with his friends.
Yeah.
And it's just been, we wanted an environment where he could be accepted in his journey, and that is absolutely what Polaris stands for.
I think I would have to, I can't reflect on that, Julie, without centering my experience as well. I mean, it has had an impact on me. And I would say most significantly through COVID. We as an immigrant family, we don't have like a natural network of people. Like my child doesn't have grandparents and aunts and uncles, and so school becomes so much more significant in my child's perception of who takes care of her, right? Who are the caretakers in my life? So the teacher, Miss Yasmin and Miss Carrie, become a lot more significant in her life. And for me, what I have really, the biggest impact was just in the sense of community that she has been able to benefit from in the first part of the year, in the fall through winter, and then experiencing that really difficult winter shutdown that just felt a bit too long. But when she returned, what I saw was a real deep sense of security building up in her. And this idea of, oh, that community exists and it's for me to return to, So probably as a child who has experienced quite a few goodbyes, she wasn't sure that that was a space that she was going to return to, no matter what, verbal assurances I tried to offer. And that, of course, it is home, and she calls it that. She'll often be daydreaming and she'll say, school feels so much like home, Mama. And I say to her, that's how it should feel. That's how school should feel to a child of her age. And I say, how lucky we are that school feels that way for you. So my selection for a school environment was also so much more fragile and delicate, because I'm aware that we don't have other senses of home in our lives here in Ottawa, and that she needs to feel that there's other places and people who will receive her with that level of warmth and love and acceptance of who she is. And if you have met my daughter, she's very strong-spirited. So there's definitely a need for her to feel, received and allowed to be this large, and this strong of a person, without it having to be managed for the adults' expectations or for whatever environment.
Well, now you've also started answering the question I was about to ask, which is, what does your child say about the school?
Yes. There's lots of things she says. There's a lot of remembering. Like, she'll just be going through her day and she'll, suddenly just be lost in thought, with a really cheeky smile on her face, and she'll be like, Philo is so silly. He did this earlier. So just lots of memories. And what I've noticed throughout the years, she cares less about me relating or understanding or commenting on her memories. At the beginning of the year, there was, let me tell you about school. And now she's just experiencing her memories and relationships in a way that feels a bit more independent of me being an audience to that. But just to me, the most profound thing is that school feels like home, because of also the way she says that in a bit of awe as well. I think she also, in her young years of life, understands how unique that is. She may not have had experiences of other schools or whatever, but I think she hears other children in her neighborhood and so on talk about school, and then she's like, that's not how I feel about school. She's beginning to make that connection. So.
I love that framing, because I think it aligns so well with what I've heard my boys say, without using that language necessarily. But it is that, it's that sense of that they feel safe to be fully themselves, and that is a huge part of that is what the teachers set for them as a container, as a space of freedom, of inner work and curiosity. And so what I hear them saying often is they're bringing things that they've experienced from school into the home. So things about rhythm and while Miss Yasmin sings this song, I'm going to sing this song for you now. Milo will set up a circle time for us at home and teach me some of the poems and tales as a way of embodying what he loves about school, rather than saying, you know, I love my teacher, or I love
circle time.
Yeah, often they do say, I love my friends, or I miss my friends. And I think because the class sizes are so small, they've been able to build these really tender, intimate relationships with their friends. And so that they speak often of that. Or they'll set up a chair and say, Nabao is sitting here, kind of conjuring their friends into other areas of their life, which to me is demonstrating how deeply known they feel when they're here, that they want to bring it all with them. And then they talk a lot about the play, the games, the things that they do that are meaningful to them, and it's different every day. And then sometimes they talk about and they bring home some challenging things that were said or experienced that they want to work out. And that's a natural, I think it's a good sign that they feel comfortable doing that, because it means that whatever they experienced at school leaves enough space for them to do that inner work, that processing. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think what they say about the school is they love it. They like coming here. They love their teachers. They love their friends, and are excited about what they're doing.
Yes, and I think we forget, because we, you know, in a way we're so privileged in receiving this, but they feel so seen and heard. You know, she feels completely seen and heard. There's no kind of, and I think that's an experience of many parents, is oftentimes you receive your child at the end of the day, and ultimately the way they feel is that they didn't get enough attention, right? You can't put that into words, but as a parent, you know it. You feel that heaviness, and I've never felt that ever with Nabawa. So no matter whether it was a challenging day or a tiring day, she was completely seen and heard and tended to. You know, there may be more processing to do, there may be rest that's needed. It may have been a naturally hard day, but that was acknowledged and given support.
A bit of a different take here. If you were to imagine this school as a person, what would their personality be? What would they look like? What would their personality be? How would they behave?
I love this question, because I do feel that the school in a way is personified in our lives, as this kind of this guide, or this kind of safe hug. I think I would say present is one of the key traits of this person.
Yes.
Very present, attentive, and with that a kind of peaceful presence. And then the second trait I'd say would be playful. And that's so central, the whimsy of the color and the textures. It's so playful. And then a little bit of mystery, like a little mysterious kind of ephemeral, that creates in you a sense of wonder, of curiosity. So I'm cheating a little bit, because I'm saying this person has this trait, but then generates in me this response. But I don't know how else to frame it. It's a relationship.
It is
right?
a relationship.
It's very much a relationship.
Yeah, how you see a person is what they also bring out in you. Yeah, I think for me, this person would be if this person is called Polaris, they would be intentional. I feel there's a lot of intentionality in everything that's being done, from its inception, you know, from its envisioning to the smallest of decisions. I would say that this person's wise, I feel that there's a lot of wisdom in the teachers, in the parent community, and our core administrator, and that people bring all of their different kinds of wisdom into the school. So I think collectively, this person is very wise and also dynamic. There's a newness to Polaris, and there's an earnest effort to build new culture. We're not simply trying to start a school that is aiming to represent a certain something to the outside world, and you'll even see that reflected in the priorities of how our school is built. When you come into the school, we may not be immediately noticeable, but our classrooms are these amazing nests and oases. So I feel that's very reflective of how the school works from the inside out. And I really appreciate that there isn't a rush to look a certain way or to meet a certain expectation, but to say we're trying to really build our own culture, and it may not look immediately accessible or understood to everybody, but we will get there in time. So that's the mystery component, I think, is that you have to come in to understand what the priorities are, and what's important to the school.
And could you describe from your point of view, what the values of the school are, and what the values of the families and the community in the school are?
This is
in your own words, of course, in your own.
Sure. This is a conversation I love to have and have a lot. Yes. I think we're so invested in understanding what that is. Mm-hmm. When you were talking about the kind of the inside out work, I think that core value really is the heart of the school, because it is striving to acknowledge that each person, of course the children, but even extended beyond that, the family members, the teachers, the administrator, each person is bringing their inner work, is bringing their experience and their journey. And I think Polaris is striving to be a community where all of those stories are valuable. Mm-hmm. And that from that place of acknowledgement, we are building a story together. And I really see the intention of that, the effort of that, the come a little closer kind of posture of that. It's not flashy, it's not, it doesn't have perfect branding, but it's because the focus is on the heart. Mm-hmm. And you'll see that in the website copy. You see the language, the intentionality behind the language of each individual journey being a high priority. And that's the value that drew us, because we wanted our children to feel that their unique spirit was being honored, not just formed, And personally, as an adult, I have been questing my whole life for a community that has the capacity to hold the nuance and hold an equitable space for all to feel fully seen and be able to contribute in a way that is meaningful to them. And I think Polaris is striving towards that, because we recognize that in order for the kids to flourish, they need to be within a community that is flourishing. And that the culture, as you said, that we're building is what frees them to learn. Yeah. If they don't feel safe and they don't feel contained in a healthy way, it's so hard to learn. And we see that in children all the time. So I think Polaris understands that that core value of care, and with that care, freedom is really important.
Yeah. For me, I also see it in, that piece about building new culture and intentionality, pulling from who Polaris is. Most significantly, our financial adjustment model, that's not, that to me speaks volumes of the value of the values of the school, because it's really embracing challenge, and it's embracing, and it's acknowledging also just the challenges that exist in a lot of Waldorf schools in terms of accessibility for families, and therefore, you know, ultimately meeting the aim of having um, a society that is self-renewing and is aiming towards something better, and to stop and say that can't be done unless truly everybody has access, is a very big stance. That's a very big stance. It's not about saying we're allowing these people in. Once they've joined the school, we can give them bursaries. There's no passing. It's truly all are welcome, because in order for us to build new culture, we all need to get into it and challenge each other and figure out a way to build new culture. Um, there's no let's wait and see, right? Which is what a lot of institutions do. Let's wait and see if we can absorb all kinds of people. And Polaris has said there is no waiting and seeing. We have to be, that has to be a part of our process. I actually this is totally off topic, but I was looking at how are relationships healthy, whether there are personal relationships, and they said that 85% of what a relationship is actually the repair work.
Right, the conflict.
It's actually like, building it and putting things together, like moving from having these, and of course, if you're in any kind of long form relationship, whether, family or whatever, that resonates with you because it's lasted this long because of how much conflict you've had. And I feel that even though in many ways, of course, Polaris is fragile, where we started new and we started in this challenging COVID climate, but there's a real intentionality about saying we have to make this work, and there's no sweeping under the rug. So I feel that these values are there, where we're trying to map out the ways to do that and to move forward. And if, again, I have full trust that once we are allowed to come together again in a more consistent way, simply just by bringing our children to school, we will be making headway in that direction. Because the fact that we're having these conversations in this challenged climate also speaks volumes, right? We have physically met each other not 20 times, but yet like we've had so many deep conversations this year. So I think it speaks to the mirroring of that value.
Well, thank you for answering all of the questions. And just to answer what you were saying, I think one of the core values that we had in all the years leading up to founding Polaris was the absolute necessity of cultivating healthy relationships. It was one of the pillars that we had, because we saw that a school is meaningless in what it gives children if there aren't healthy relationships. And that's relationships, parents and teacher, obviously, parents and children, children and teacher, all of these different levels, and administration and teachers and board and teachers and parents, and all these levels of relationship need to be carried as something meaningful. and as something that matters, because anything sour along the way affects everybody else. It's like the water in the planet, right? It's all connected to everybody through the air, through the water we drink, through the seas we sail on. And relationships are like that too. And so to bring consciousness to relationships is really one of the core values. Because if you have that, you can go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You have trust
Mm-hmm.
that you can get through it, like in a healthy marriage, right? If you trust that you can get through it, you'll get through it. Thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Would either of you like to add something as a last word about Polaris?
I think it's noteworthy what an incredible group of families we have. To say these are people that I love, and that's not easily achieved. As you said, the way you achieve that is through hard conversation and conflict. And for a parent who is considering the school, if a core value of theirs is to have meaningful relationship, this is a place that has capacity for that. People who have capacity for that. Beautiful, beautiful people. I think that's evident.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you. I'll take that as a direct compliment to me.
Please do.
But I don't have anything to second what Leah said. I think for me, it's I brought my child and she was having a great experience. But then once I saw what's behind that, there's the children in her class. Who are they? Who are their families? I started to feel investment, a natural sense of investment. So we invite you to come along and to join us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Julie.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.